to Revolution Report, the show that highlights pressing issues, uplifts community voices, and questions the status quo. I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
And I'm Annalisa Vanolia.
We felt the need to dive deeper into societal problems and explore subjects from diverse perspectives. So join us in the revolution.
This episode, we're following up on our discussion of ICE under the Trump administration. With all the developments that have happened over the past few weeks, we felt it was essential to return to the topic and talk about what's been going on.
We've got some important things to cover, and we're going to share some ideas for what we can do as American citizens to fight back. So let's get right into it. So Trump has invoked the Alien Enemies Act to expedite deportations of Venezuelan immigrants. He claims that Venezuela is, quote, invading the United States.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. Just so we're all on the same page, the Alien Enemies Act was created in 1798, barely a decade after the United States became a country, and it allows the president to order the removal of any immigrant deemed to be a threat to the country or to be committing treason. And this is, to be clear, a wartime act, only to be invoked during wartime.
Yes, are we in a war?
Trump says we are, but I have yet to see it.
Yeah. So what this does is it gets rid of the constitutional right to due process, which everyone is entitled to, citizen or not.
Exactly. Which makes it so much more frustrating, given that we're not in a war, that the Supreme Court has allowed Donald Trump to use this act to justify the removal of Venezuelans. Though the Supreme Court did say that they are entitled to having a court hearing before they're deported.
Yeah, but of course, Trump is ignoring that. And I would like to point out that presidents have been impeached for lesser things.
Yeah.
Like this, in my opinion, a lot of people are saying that we are going to a constitutional crisis. No. We're in one.
Agreed 100%. When people are getting denied constitutional rights, which apply to everyone in the United States, regardless of citizenship status, we are in a constitutional crisis, especially when courts are ordering that the Trump administration follow the Constitution, and the Trump administration blatantly ignores them, as they have been with this. So if the presidency is allowed to ignore the Constitution, does it matter that we have one?
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to push. He's trying to push for that realization that he is above the law.
Yeah, no, it's a really scary thought to think that the law is going to be determined by a very impulsive, flighty, uneducated man who is very malicious and very self-interested.
Very self-interested. And also, it did not help that in the Supreme Court ruling, their language was very laxed, in my opinion, so that there was room for interpretation for him to avoid the ruling.
That is deeply unfortunate and very frustrating to see that so many justices are not upholding the Constitution that they were sworn to uphold.
Yeah, money's very powerful. Allegedly.
Allegedly. Moving on to our next point. We brought up due process earlier, but I wanted to dive into it a little bit because not everyone knows what due process is. So, Sarah, what is due process?
Of course I will tell you, Anna.
Thank you, my queen.
According to the International Rescue Committee, due process is, quote, a fundamental right guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. It protects people against arbitrary government decisions and ensures fairness in legal matters. Both citizens and non-citizens in the U.S. have the right to due process. It's a chance to defend their rights and to have a fair hearing, end quote. Basically, it's a right to a fair trial.
Yes, and this is one of the core points of the American justice system, as flawed as it is, but it is one of the most important parts of our justice system. Everyone is guaranteed a trial, and it's the presumption of innocence before being proven guilty. You know, you can't just be jailed for once you've been accused of a crime. You're entitled to defend yourself in court.
Yes. Also, Donald Trump, I find it very ironic that Donald Trump is going after due process because he himself has benefited from due process.
Mm-hmm.
He would be in jail as we speak if it were not for due process. So I think this further proves the case of his white supremacist and his eugenic ideology, that he is special, that he is above the law.
Yeah, and that he wants to rid the country of people who aren't like him.
Correct.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that. Now, bringing it back to the Alien Enemies Act, despite Trump's claims that Venezuela is directing an invasion of the United States through migrants and gang members, U.S. intelligence offers evidence to the contrary. According to the Washington Post, the National Intelligence Council, one of our own intelligence agencies, has found no evidence of such a plan. And if that plan doesn't exist, there is no legal or rational basis for Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act and the elimination of due process in deporting these Venezuelan immigrants.
Yes, I think this adds further evidence to my analysis before that he is a eugenicist through and through, because eugenics does not have any basis of fact to it. It is just a held belief.
Yeah.
He clearly has a belief that people of color, especially brown people, do not deserve to be in America, should be eradicated from America. You know, that is white supremacy, but I also do think that we need to keep in mind that that is eugenics.
Absolutely. He only wants the population to be a certain way.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I think you are 110 spot on with that analysis.
So, Marco Rubio, former governor of Florida and current Secretary of State, has come out and said that everyone is entitled to due process. I find that very surprising, considering his track record.
Yeah, Mr. Don't Say Gay himself, #1 hateful man of Florida, waging a war against Disney, you know, just doing crazy things all the time.
Yeah, you know it's bad when they elect Marco Rubio to be the smooth over PR guy.
Yeah, how is it him? And he's also just blatantly denying facts that we have seen, you know? We know that not every single immigrant that's being deported is being given due process. The Trump administration themselves have come out and said, yeah, we don't want that. So for him to then be saying, no, everyone's entitled to it. Sure, but are you giving it to them?
Yeah. That is the question. Are you following what you preach?
And no, because they're all hypocrites.
Yeah, and I don't find it shocking because we do know that ICE came out and did say that they are making warrantless arrests.
Mm-hmm.
This administration, at every given point, has defied protocol, has defied just law, and has defied morale.
Yeah, they have no morality whatsoever.
Yeah.
Literally none. And that's the point, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're seeing what they can get away with, but I'm thankful that we have our show to report on it.
Absolutely. Agreed 100%.
Also, the effects of Trump's immigration policies are not just contained to deportations and the communities they affect. According to Newsweek, the mass deportations are having a drastic effect on American farms. Unfortunately, given the many farms use undocumented labor to run their farms, with around 40% of farm workers being undocumented, according to Department of Agriculture, labor shortages are leading to rising food prices.
Yeah, and we already know that Americans are upset about the high cost of food, and food is a necessity to live, which is not news to anyone, but just a fact. So with those rises in food costs, you have the Trump administration, if your produce costs a little bit more, like 50 cents more or 20 cents more, and that adds up, you have the Trump administration and their immigration policies to thank for that.
Yes, leading us to our next point. According to Reuters, Trump plans to sign an executive order that will demand officials identify cities and states that are, quote, not complying with federal immigration orders. This is our speculation, but I believe that this targets California because we are a sanctuary state. This is the favorite target of the right. Trump has already tried to withhold federal funding from cities and counties that are sanctuaries, but a judge blocked his efforts to do so.
Yeah, thank goodness that has been upheld so far. We'll see what happens. But yeah, California is a sanctuary state, and we have been pretty loud about being one. And we also have the fourth largest economy in the world. We have surpassed Japan and are now, California independently itself, the fourth largest economy in the world. A lot of that being our agriculture and like tech and things like that. But that would impact us pretty severely.
And this is a call to action to Gavin Newsom, who should know that this is happening on Monday as we record this. What is he going to do about it? How is he going to fight back?
Yeah, going on podcasts with Charlie Kirk is not how you fight back against the right. So stop that and take action to protect our state.
Yeah, what is he doing? And so it's just something to think about, because we do know he is gearing up to run for president. And if he's not willing to protect California, how is he willing to protect the United States?
Absolutely. And that brings us to one of our last points, which is, why does all of this matter? Why does Trump enacting the Alien Enemies Act against Venezuelan immigrants matter if you're an average American citizen and you were born here in the United States? Well, it matters because if due process is taken away from one group, in this case, Venezuelan immigrants, it can be taken away from everyone. If any one group is stripped of their constitutional rights, it's a slippery slope to no one having constitutional rights whatsoever.
Yes, correct. This is a quick route to jailing and deporting political opponents or anyone that disagrees or sows dissent against this administration.
Absolutely. In theory, God forbid, but any reporter who speaks out about what the president is doing could be deported. Any person who posts on social media could be labeled a terrorist and therefore a threat to the safety of the United States government under Donald Trump and deported for that, sent to a country where they don't have any roots, any means to make a living, or they could be jailed and prosecuted and stuck in prison and become a political prisoner and just forgotten about by the system.
Yes. So we need to make, which we will talk about later on, what we all can do, but we need to make noise.
Absolutely. We cannot be silent about this. Which brings us to our final points, which is what we can all do to protest this unconstitutional action. We can, in the streets, protest the unlawful deportation of immigrants safely. Keep that in mind. Our previous episode has tips on how to protest safely. So check that out if you want to hear them.
Yes, and also call or email your representatives. Make sure that they hear you're upset. We will link resources to what you can say and how to say it. And we've seen a trend of representatives not wanting to take calls or anything like that. So what you need to do is send mail if you have to.
Yeah, stamps are pretty cheap. I think they're 40-something cents each, and you only need one stamp to send a postcard, send a letter. So if you have to, type out your messages, print them out, or just handwrite a letter to your representative and send it to their office so that way they cannot ignore your voice.
Yes.
Also, keep your community safe. In our episode on ICE, we shared some important ways that you can keep yourself and your community safe if ICE comes to your neighborhood. So go listen to that episode if you want to learn those tips.
Yes, and last but certainly not least, keep making noise. What we are seeing right now in this country is awful. The approach that a lot of congressmen and congresspeople have made is just rolling over and taking it, not taking action, not doing anything about it. So it is up to the people to make that noise. And I'm hoping congresspeople do follow suit. We are seeing a slow but steady incline to that. But something I do want to end the episode with is a lot of news organizations and representatives and congresspeople are not being honest with the state of the United States right now. I am seeing a lot of representatives saying that we are going to a constitutional crisis. No. We're in one. We are in one. This is a result of fascism, lessening the blow, not being honest with what is truly happening.
Yeah. And something that I want to urge all of our listeners to ask themselves is, what would you do, or what are you going to do to fight against this descent into fascism, because we've all had those thoughts when we were in history classes. Oh, what would I have done if I was in Nazi Germany? Now is your time. Now is your time to find out what you would have done. Would you have just stood by and let fascism take over your country? Or are you going to stand up and defend the rights of your fellow citizens against a tyrannical government? Now is the time to find out. Do not be complacent.
Do not be complacent.
That wraps up this episode. We hope it inspires you to take action.
As always, useful resources based on our conversation will be linked on our website, hamblecourtradio.com. You can also follow us on Blue Sky at Hamblecourt Radio. Highly recommend you do so. And you can also follow me there at Sarah Livings Walsh.
I'm there as Not Like Mona Lisa. Don't forget to rate, review, and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
And with that, I'm Sarah Livings Walsh.
I'm Annalisa Vanolia.
And this has been Revolution Report.
Well,